ReconAthlete.com podcast is brought to you by Kreitz Market.
The Cowboys are. But as far as what it's going to bring to the table with Dallas, that was never one of the names that we really mentioned whenever we talked about people that we wanted to see in Dallas. And I think it's because you don't really know too much about Mike McCarthy. Like you know he's a good coach, and that's about it. That's really all you say. He doesn't really have a specific calling card in terms of offense, a specific calling card in terms of something that each of his teams would always show. I think he kind of fell into a really good situation with Aaron Rodgers after Brett Favre, and I think that's not the situation you're stepping into with Dallas. So I think I'm very curious to see how this goes. I'm curious to see how he puts together the remainder of his staff, because I think that is going to be the tell of this coaching hire is who his defensive coordinators are going to be, who his position coaches are going to be, what are the names that we are more familiar with that they think about bringing and end up bringing to complete his staff. I think one of the names that has been talked about a lot in terms of the running back coach is Stan Drayton from UT, which I think would be really big for that running game, because that's the coach that had Ezekiel Elliott in college at Ohio State. So if they can get him from UT, which would be very bad for UT, but very good for the Cowboys, I think. And I think just him showing the effort and trying to get that name into his staff and get that name for Ezekiel Elliott is showing the effort that he wants to get this running game and wants to get his star running back on track.
Yeah, so it sounds like right now, McCarthy is just trying to get everything, all his ducks in a row. Mm-hmm. He's trying to get everything done. I'm curious if he's the one that kind of pushed the Jones family to say, hey, I know the situation. I want to make sure that our quarterback position is set for the next few years. I don't have to worry about, franchising Dak and then, doing this whole thing again next year or the year after if they franchise him in 2021. I think, if I were Mike McCarthy, I think that I would have been, pushing for the Dak Prescott, contract. So all that can be set aside and they can go ahead and make sure that Dak's taken care of, and then we can go to work.
And I think that's a great thing that you bring up about Mike McCarthy wanting to push that contract, because all that does is give more leverage for Dak Prescott in the negotiations, because now that Dak knows what kind of coach he's going to have with Mike McCarthy, he's going to say, look, we're going to be successful. We're going to put up points. They were prolific last year with Kellen Moore calling plays. The talent level is there for them to make big numbers. At the end of the day, it's all about the W's, but I think that's where Mike McCarthy brings everything together, is the right cook in the kitchen for them. But Dak Prescott's going to say, look, we're going to be prolific. We've already done that without Mike McCarthy. Now we're just going to get W's and Super Bowls, allegedly. That's just wait to be seen. But I think that's where he's going to be pushing for that $40 million mark per year, and I think that's what that leverage is by bringing in Mike McCarthy, because he is a quarterback-centric coach.
Zach?
No, I agree with Paul, but I think I think Cowboys fans should be very cautiously optimistic, because I think you should be optimistic of the fact that you have a new coach, but cautious in the fact that you don't know much about how it's going to go. And Mike McCarthy's been out of coaching for a year. How does that help, or how does that hurt? How does that hurt his relationships with potential coaches? How does that help with him getting his kind of mind back on track after failing in the tail end of his career at Green Bay?
Yeah, and I think with McCarthy hire and then this the Dak contract thing, as a Cowboys fan, all of a sudden, if Jason Garrett was the head coach, I'm talking I don't know about giving Dak this contract. I'm not sure about that.
Sure,
but now there's this cautious optimism, as Zach so eloquently put it, with Mike McCarthy in the house. He's a proven coach, Super Bowl winner. Mm-hmm. Been to 4 NFC championships.
Right.
So all of a sudden, as a Cowboys fan, I'm not so hesitant about giving Dak that contract.
Unless you get Tom Brady.
Right. Or Phillip Rivers.
That's right. So,
what I'm doing there as a Cowboys fan is saying, I've got faith in Mike McCarthy and in this system, this West Coast offense. And I also put a lot of faith into Dak to be able to make the transition to the West Coast style. We talked about it on Tuesday night, because he's going to have to read defenses. He's going to have to make the quick passes. He's going to have to be accurate, which his accuracy has always been questionable, in my opinion.
Okay.
You know, he misses open receivers.
Yeah, he's late.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work for Dak. But I do think the difference between $34 and $40 million, that's $6 million. That's a lot of money to most people. But I think if you're trying to make this thing go away and take care of it, I don't see what the hesitancy would be for them to give the $40 million to him at all. Paul?
Two big things that stick out to me for Jerry Jones, what he wanted. He wanted a guy who's a proven winner, check, with Super Bowl. He won it in Dallas, so Jerry Jones got to see that. The other half is the improvements that Mike McCarthy is bringing in is he's starting to accept and adapt to the new style of offense, and you're going to have analytics instituted into that, and I think that's the biggest thing that Jerry Jones wanted to know in the interview process was like, look, my whole time when I was off and my year away from coaching, I did that. I brought in a guy, I moved him into my house, Mike McCarthy did, and understood what it takes to win and be successful in this league. I think coupled with his West Coast offense, understanding the analytics, bringing in his defensive coordinator with Mike Nolan, Jim Tom Sula, who's another head coach in the NFL as their defensive line coach. You're going to bring in Brady Quinn, or Brady Quinn's there with D. Lawrence. I mean, I think this team gets really solid really fast with a lot of strong coaches on the defensive side. And the running back coach that Zach mentioned, I think coupled with them makes them very formidable. I think people are going to, of course, always say, because Dallas Cowboy fans are hysterical at times, we're going to win the Super Bowl. But there's a lot of validity with these hires that they mentioned going into next season.
Yeah. Mr. Snupe Daniel, our guest today, what's your take on any of this that we're talking about?
I don't know. I'm just listening. No, I really don't. I'm just like a fantasy fan and a Cowboys fan. I just want to see it work out.
Yeah.
That's really.
And so
I'm the layman opinion here. Like most fans are pretty ignorant. They just want to see the Cowboys win. And as far as like breaking down the analytics of it, like we look to experts on TV and on radio and on podcasts to really form our opinions, and our opinions are what we hear. So
yeah, and so as a Cowboys fan, do you want to give Dak that contract, get that out of the way?
Nah, fam. Sorry, he's no Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, and I did like him a lot more his first year, but I haven't seen enough magical moments from Dak as a layman fan to be 100% behind it. I would rather see Tom Brady in here. I would not want to see Phillip Rivers.
No.
Really? Tom Brady, cool. So, I don't know.
Check the lid, y'all.
I mean, I don't know. That's just Tom Brady's coming back, but I don't know if he's going to come to Dallas Cowboys.
Right. Well, y'all mentioned, like I said, we look to the experts or the podcasters to form our opinions, and I heard y'all say Tom Brady, so that's example number one right there. I'm like, Tom Brady.
It's a very live rumor. It's a very live rumor right now.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
It's got some weight on it?
It has a little bit of weight. It has a little bit of validity, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Tom Brady wants to go to L.A., sell his TB12 system, his apparel, and I think Giselle wants to be out west too.
All right, so wrapping up the Dak contract stuff. Number and when you think this could happen, Paul?
I think this happens by the end of next Saturday, and I think it's going to be about $38 million.
38?
Yeah.
Okay.
A year?
A year.
God.
Yeah. Any predictions? I know Paul had one on Zach or Snoop. Y'all don't really care about that. Zach's on his phone.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
All right. ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 42. And I want to shout out to the Facebook watch party. Shout out to Stephanie, Leonard, Tita, Jesse, Paul Bazan, our old friend that's likes to bet on the Cowboys. Emo, Zach has joined us as well, like on the Facebook watch party and here live. Say what's up to Jay, Gareth Cook, who is actually our Wastewood fantasy football champion. So congratulations on that.
I dig the name Wastewood. I dig that.
Wayne and shout out Wayne Gonzalez. Jonathan Gonzalez, your coworker.
Oh yeah, that's my boy.
He's like, who is that? All right, national championship coming up Monday night. What I thought interesting about the national championship game is that Paul decided he needed to take 2 days off of work.
Yeah, yes, sir.
For the national championship.
Mr. Gomez, what's up? That's my boss.
Why is that, Paul?
Well, mainly I like to enjoy the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, which we'll get to. But I always kind of structure my time off. I never take any time off during the Christmas or Thanksgiving break or New Year's. I kind of just sandbag it until I get to the New Year, and I take 2 days for the national championship because they schedule it on a Monday. So I need the Tuesday to get back in the swing of things, and then for the Super Bowl, I'll take off the following Monday, the 3rd of February. Also, just like to recuperate, get ready for the work week, and I just don't want to do that right after a long night, a Super Bowl win or a national championship win. I just like to enjoy myself.
See, that just shows how big of a sports fan Paul is, because like most people take off for like their birthday or
I take off my birthday too.
Significant other stuff. Wait, that's true, but I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
You're the first person that I've known, and I've known you to do this for years now.
Yeah,
to take off the day after Super Bowl and after national championship.
Yep, I'm not gonna work because I'm gonna be too distracted, and I will be watching live coverage on whatever provider I choose from probably lunchtime until 11:30 at night, watching post game celebrations with whoever pulls out the victory.
All right, so Joe Burrow versus Trevor Lawrence Monday night. LSU still the favorite.
Yeah, LSU minus 5.5.
5.5. That's a lot of points. Paul, I'll let you start off, and then I'll get Zach's opinion.
So I've been watching a lot of film on both of these teams. Last night I spent about 2 hours watching the most competitive game that I think LSU had to face. And unfortunately for y'all, it was the University of Texas besides Alabama. But to me, Alabama had better talent than the University of Texas. But what the University of Texas did was they were down late. They got hit in the mouth. They came back. But to me, the biggest keys I saw the deficiencies on LSU's side was they give up way too many yards with catches out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. They also give up way too many yards with quarterbacks who like to run on the field or run the ball, on the field. With that being said, we saw what Trevor Lawrence did a week and a half ago against Ohio State, running the ball with his legs. I think that LSU tries to stop that. I think the biggest key to this game is going to be Isaiah Simmons. He's going to be the X factor for Brent Venables on the Clemson defensive side of the football. I don't think that LSU has seen anybody like him. He's a Swiss Army knife. The guy can cover Thaddeus Moss in the slot as a tight end, or he can be like a Derek Brooks type in a Tampa 2 defense and cover anything in the middle or anything on the sidelines. With that kind of range, the dude's going to be an extremely proficient professional. But I don't think Joe Burrow has seen anybody like him. The other thing that I want people to take into consideration is if you pressure Joe Burrow, that's the only way you're going to get this guy off. And the only way I see that happening is that Brent Venables is going to have to be creative with his blitz schemes, and he's going to have to do it on 3rd and long, because that's the biggest thing that I saw in the University of Texas matchup was there was a 3rd and 17 late in the game. There's a 1-ball possession, and Joe Burrow completes a 3rd and 17 for 6 all the way to the house. The only thing that I saw was Texas decide to play coverage on that play. If you blitz Joe Burrow, get him off track, get him off of his pedestal, I think that's where he makes mistakes. Or his mistake will be throwing the ball away. I don't think he turns the ball over or forces anything. That's just not in his makeup. I like Clemson in this game. I'm taking the plus 5.5 for Clemson, and I'm also going to take the money line. Just with that being said,
dang, Zach.
I think also for Clemson, you have to look at what this long break has done for both teams. I mean, LSU didn't really have much of a game, whereas Clemson was in a very hard fought game against Ohio State. So Clemson having this week of rest, it only does help Clemson more than it helps LSU. So I think schematically and then coaches wise, the coaches that have been known to put up these great game plans and make these great adjustments are the coaches for Clemson. So to give them a week, to give Brett Venables a week to kind of game plan and scheme up things for this LSU team, I think that makes it scarier for LSU. I do think LSU is still going to win, and just because I think for Clemson to win, there hasn't been a defense that stopped LSU all year. So to think that Clemson's going to do it, I think is a very tall task. But I think Clemson does have the offensive firepower to score and keep up with LSU, because that's what that Texas game ended up turning into, was just two offenses trying to outscore each other. Yeah. It's almost like they kind of, once Texas realized that they weren't going to stop LSU, and once the LSU defense realized that they couldn't keep up with Sam Ehlinger and the receivers that Texas had, then they kind of were just like, oh, let's just forget that part and just score. I think Clemson has shown us more times than LSU has where their offense has faltered throughout the year, whether that be against North Carolina or just some times where we've seen Clemson not put up the numbers that we've seen LSU put up. So I think it comes down to who can score easiest, and I think that's going to be LSU.
Okay. Yeah. Paul?
Another thing I like is a homecoming for Travis Etienne. Mentioning earlier with catching out of the backfield, I think that's where he's going to be most prolific for the Clemson Tigers. You get this guy in space, if he gets to the next level, past the linebackers, he's gone. There's nobody that's going to be able to catch him. I know they got dogs on the side of the ball for LSU in their backfield, but this is a different kind of back. That dude played with these guys in high school. This dude is just as bad, just as proficient, and just as tough to get through the front 4 or 7 for the LSU Tigers. It's kind of funny saying Tigers and Tigers.
Yeah.
But I like Travis Etienne. I think he's going to be the MVP of this football game. Big homecoming. Clemson lands another national title. I just like them. I've been high on them all year. I liked LSU a lot just because I didn't get to see Clemson through much of the year. But seeing what LSU's done, their whole body of work is tremendous. They played everybody, and they've won. There hasn't been any questions. My biggest thing is nobody's punched them in the mouth since Alabama, and that was a long time ago. They've been rolling the last 4 or 5 games. The past 2 games they played, they won by 35 plus. So my biggest thing going into this game is, what do you do? We saw what Trevor Lawrence did when he got punched in the mouth. He got up and turned the whole game around on his own, put the team on his back. What happens when Joe Burrow gets hit in the mouth? We haven't seen that yet. And they've been having an easy road with the last 2 games. So I just want to see what the outcome will be when you get punched. We already know. The checkbox has been marked for Clemson. Let's see what happens with LSU.
Zach, you got a rebuttal to that?
No, I just feel like there's a difference between, like, just because you're not having to come back doesn't mean you're not getting punched in the mouth. Like Joe Burrow's moments have been pulling away instead of coming back. They just haven't been. They didn't have to play Ohio State in the last round. Yeah. They had to play Georgia in the conference championship game. They had to play Alabama. They had to play Florida. They had to play Auburn. They had to play Texas. And these games, they weren't as close for you to say, oh, they got punched in the mouth and he got up off the carpet and resurged his team to win the game. Those games stayed close. And then Joe Burrow had a Heisman moment after Heisman moment to pull away from those games like that third down play against Texas, like that scramble play he had against Georgia where he had the open receiver and found that guy. I mean, Joe Burrow has made moments that have been these kind of response moments, but they're not a response to losing. They're a response to putting the game away. And I think this is a national championship game. You're going to have to put the game away. And so I think I think there's going to be a wire-to-wire winner, like leader in this game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of back and forth.
Really?
So I think Clemson. If it's Clemson, I think Clemson gets up on them early, and it's because their defense has found a way to stop LSU, which is something that we haven't seen all year. But it's Clemson's defense and LSU trying to figure that out. And if it's LSU, I think it's just more of the same, where both teams are scoring, but LSU has kept a slight edge the whole time.
This game is going to be. If you look at the field, the athletes are equal. That you got equal quarterbacks, running backs, all the way to the end, special teams. To me, it's come down to the offense coordinator, Joe Brady, versus Brent Venables. And I think the edge goes to Venables, and I think that's why LSU gets the victory. But it's going to be at the end of the game. I think this is a heavyweight match, trade blows, and it comes down probably to the kicking game where a field goal wins the game at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean, and then, of course, myself, it's been well documented here. I like the narratives parts and the narratives here. Joe Burrow is the Heisman winner. Mm-hmm. It's rare for a Heisman winner to also win the national championship.
That's true.
I think Zach's got a great point that LSU has been the front runner.
Yep.
But I also think that the Clemson Tigers, because LSU is the favorite, Clemson hasn't lost a game in how long? Forever. You know, it's been a couple years. They're the defending national champions. They haven't lost a game all season. They didn't lose a game all last season. You haven't given anybody any reason for them to be other than the number one team in the nation and to not be favored. But you know, Vegas doesn't care about what they did last year or this year.
I'm glad you bring up Vegas, because there's one thing I want everybody just to understand. You know, if you have opportunity to make a wager on this game, the opening line for this game was LSU -3. What the hell changed to make them -5.5 now? It really doesn't make sense. And so with that being -3, that's a coin flip. That's just a 50-50 shot. I mean, you can say home field advantage all you want, but they don't play in New Orleans. They play in Baton Rouge at Death Valley. So I want people to understand that +5.5 is really attractive, especially when that opening line for this game was -3 for the LSU Tigers.
Zach,
Were you done?
yeah,
Oh, I just think talking about narratives, I think LSU was just a very likable team this year.
Okay.
I think that story has been so fun for people to follow. This LSU team is just fun to root for. With like we have Coach O, like when his interviews on the sideline after games and at halftime, you have him kind of cussing out Alabama in the locker room. You have Joe Burrow, who's just kind of not rags to riches, but in terms of his career, a success from the transfer portal. He was kind of being written off last year, and he's resurged his whole career. He's turned into a very likable guy. He's getting up after getting hit. And then last year in that bowl game where he kind of took that shot against UCF, and that guy kind of stood over him for a little bit, and he took that and came back and threw away UCF, basically ruined their everything.
Yeah.
So I think this LSU team is just a very likable team, and if it wasn't for the kind of the things that Dabo was saying when it got into time to make their Final Four, these would probably be two of the most likable teams in the country. And I think because of people had kind of a bad taste in their mouth with Dabo saying that people weren't giving them any credit and blah blah blah. It's turned into two likable teams to this Clemson team against this. I mean, you people still want to think of LSU as an underdog just because they're kind of this underdog story throughout the year where no one really talked about them last year. Their quarterback is kind of a down and out guy that's coming to win the Heisman. So I think that line goes to show that people really are rooting for LSU.
Yeah, I think money is going to LSU. And I'd be interested to find out where the experts are landing. Where those professional guys that are out in the desert that make all these sports betting. And there's the public money, and then there's the professional money. Mm-hmm. Those are always two different things.
The sharks.
Those sharks. You know what I'm saying? So I think Zach's got a great point. The LSU Tigers are a very likable team. I mean, Coach O is just a likable character. I mean, who doesn't like, when Coach O starts talking, you can't understand half the things that he's saying, but he's just a real likable guy. And he's kind of a quote unquote rags to riches, kind of like Joe Burrow. I mean, he was, over at USC and he was an interim coach, over there, and they didn't want to hire him in LA. And then he goes and finds a home in the Bayou in LSU, and he's built this great team out of that. So I think there is a lot of underdog stories when it comes to the LSU Tigers. And I think it's almost like they're both fighting to be the underdog in this game. They're kind of like, man, like we're underdog because of Joe Burrow, because of Coach O, but and that's LSU. And then Clemson is, well, we're still 5.5 point dogs in this game, even though we're defending national champions. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm hoping that Paul, you're right, that we're going to come down to a field goal at the end, and I'm pulling for the Clemson Tigers now because they did beat my team, Ohio State. I had picked Ohio State at the beginning of the season. Yeah, that was a great game, by the way.
It was.
But I'm going to go with Clemson. I'm going to take the points. I don't know about the money line. I mean, I'm rooting for Clemson. If I were to put money on it, I would just do that. You got the money line for sure.
I have the +5.5 for sure. I have the spread for sure.
Spread for sure. Okay.
Yeah, spread for sure.
All right. So
and I think to write off the fact that this game is in Louisiana is I think ridiculous. That they don't play at that stadium, Paul, but it's still going to be tremendously more LSU fans than Clemson fans. I think my dad had a good point that these are one of those games that's more of a corporate event anyways than people just buying tickets. So it's a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of people there that don't have affiliations between one team or the other. And LSU is just the easier team to root for, being in Louisiana. But not only is it a homecoming for Travis Etienne, but it's a homecoming for this entire LSU team. So I think that's going to be huge in terms of building momentum and having the crowd behind you. And I think you also made a point about that Travis Etienne being one of the better running backs that this LSU team has faced. They still played through the SEC, and the SEC has been a running back factory for years. I mean, we've seen NFL running backs. The Perrine for Florida, he's going to be an NFL running back. The guy for Alabama, what's his name? Najee Harris. He's going to be an NFL running back. So I don't think I don't think that LSU has played no NFL running backs this year. So I mean, if anything, I think they've had more practice dealing with these bigger backs that Travis Etienne is. This kind of blend of size and speed than most teams than even Clemson has, because Edwards-Helaire, the running back for LSU, is kind of a changeup. He's not a huge running back. He's not this tiny, quick guy either. He's kind of a blend of that. He's more like an Alvin Kamara, where he's undersized, but he catches the ball really good out of the backfield. He's shifty. He's shifty in the backfield, breaking tackles at that first level. So I think this is the running back position. I think Clemson definitely has the better talent there, but I think LSU is bringing something that Clemson might not have seen yet.
Paul?
No, I'm good. I mean, I don't think there's anything Zach's going to say that's going to make me change my mind. The biggest thing that I want people just to take away is that this is going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be just as good or better than the semifinal matchup with Ohio State. And everybody's going to get to enjoy this game at a really great time. And I'm looking forward to it. I just can't wait to, get to sit down and veg out on this game. So I'm excited for it.
Snoop, would if you were a betting man, the spread or money lines, what would you go with that?
Always money line. So, because I want the money.
Yeah.
So I'd take Clemson money line.
Well, Clemson money line. All right. So it's going to be a great game. I'm excited about it. Where you watch it at the house?
Yeah, probably at the house or with my pops, my dad. Papa Romeo. Shout out Papa Romeo.
I think I'm going to be in Steiner watching.
Steiner. What you doing over there?
That's my people over there.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
I didn't know you had it like that.
Yeah, I got it.
Were you at the UT Golf Club or what?
No, just one of the Vandy families is gonna have some over there.
Oh, okay.
So we'll watch that. But speaking of Vandy, I don't know if you guys saw that the McNeil named their new head coach, which is the defensive coordinator for Vandegrift.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think that's going to do too much in terms of the defense for Vandegrift, because Coach Sanders is the one that calls the plays anyways. But Coach Hermes has been a real staple of that program over the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of – so I think right now we know McNeil as more of an offensive school than defensive. So it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of turn that program around, not only in terms of kind of relevancy, but in terms of kind of their calling card, and if they can turn that defense around to making a stand in whatever new district that they're put in.
So Vandegrift with the McNeil with the new head coach. What's his name? Hermes.
Yeah, Scott Hermes.
So
Like herpes.
Jeez, Snoop.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking something that rhymed.
Okay. Yeah, so that's McNeil's going to go through a change there. So, yeah, defensively they've struggled. I was kind of hoping that my boy would get that position. But shout out Coach McKinley.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, ReconAthlete.com podcast episode number 42. Hey y'all, don't forget January 19th. Zach's good to go, so he's not going to be sick anymore. We're going to have a live show out at Kreitz Market down in Lockhart, Texas. It's going to be me. It's going to be Paul, Zach. I think Snoop's going to even make the trip down there. We're going to try to get some guests down there. We got some Kreitz Market gift cards coming for some trivia.
Yes, sir.
Everything's kicking off at noon o'clock. We're going to have some live music going on as well.
Yep.
Plenty of barbecue, plenty of things to do. It's going to be a great time. January 19th at Kreitz Market for the Recon Athlete podcast live broadcast. Quick shout out to Watch Party. Shout out Burr, Carrie, Anthony and Karen, and Craig. What's up, Craig?
That's my boy, Craig Way.
I don't know, man. Say what's up. All right. NFL divisional playoff round. We are starting off today, and I was kind of interesting, or found it interesting that this game would be the first game that they would put out there. Minnesota at San Francisco today at 3:35 Central Time. And Snoop, you mentioned it the other day that these were kind of some weird times that they were starting this, but it's going to be at San Francisco, so it's going to be about 1:30.
Yep.
Out there. Minnesota Vikings. They played Sunday evening, and then they're going to the West Coast and playing on a Saturday afternoon. Does that factor in at all into this game, Paul?
I believe it does. Anytime from the team from the Midwest to the East Coast flies to the West Coast, it's always a really difficult transition for them, especially with the jet lag if that comes up. But these are professionals.
Yeah.
I think these guys are going to be primed and ready to go. They had the big upset last week against the Saints. And this week, if I had to do the line, I think right now San Francisco's -7 favorite right now.
Yeah, still out.
Unproven quarterback with Jimmy G. San Francisco's D-line is tremendous. I think that the Saints are a really solid front as well. Kirk Cousins gets the ball out. I think the 49ers win the game, but I think it's a really close loss. I think it's maybe like 6 or 5 points in that range. So if I'm betting, I'm taking Minnesota +7.
Wow.
Yeah, I think if you're Minnesota, you're just kind of doing what kind of their MO for the playoffs over the last couple of years is just kind of ride a wave. Yeah. Like we had the Minnesota Miracle a few years ago, and I think this team just really relies on momentum, and they've kind of been in a precarious spot every year where they're kind of on the outside part of the teams that made the playoffs. So anytime they can get that first wild card win, I think that just gives them a ton of momentum. And I think a defense that people didn't talk about enough this year in general is that Vikings defense. That Vikings has a really good defensive line. Everson Griffin, I think the amount of speed they have up front, I think they attack you differently than San Francisco does. But in terms of pressuring the quarterback, they can do it just as well. And like you said, Jimmy G is an unproven guy. He hasn't really had to win a game yet, and I think if you're Minnesota, I think that's what you want to get this game to come down to. If you can keep this game close and put Jimmy G in a situation where he does have to win a game, I think that's all you can do is just kind of hope that he doesn't, because you don't know. And I think that's the best situation is to put the game in his hands and pressure him and force him into mistakes. If Minnesota can kind of stifle San Francisco's running game, which has kind of been another calling card for them this year with Matt Breida. Right. Mm-hmm. And if they can kind of stifle that running game and again put that pressure back onto that passing game, they do have Emmanuel Sanders now, but they don't have a ton of weapons to make it easier on Jimmy G. And that Adam Thielen is coming off an injury. He was hurt at practice earlier in the week, but they said it wasn't going to hold him out of this game. And I think just having him out there, whether he's 100% or not, I think is a big comfort to Kirk Cousins. So I think the situation is primed and ready for Minnesota to come and win this game. But I think just watching San Francisco, being a Packers fan, and watching San Francisco kind of dismantle that team, I think that's just a scary defense for San Francisco. And I think San Francisco does what Minnesota likes to do, but better. So I think between the two, I think it's a really good matchup, but I think San Francisco takes this one.
I like Deebo Samuels a lot, and I think he's going to be able to move the chains quite a bit. But I think the biggest star in this game, the biggest X factor, is George Kittle. He's going to be the security blanket for Jimmy G to move the ball. But I think the running game, like you mentioned, Zach, I think is going to be the most significant thing for them to move the chains as well with Deebo Samuels. But George Kittle, I think, is the biggest security blanket for Jimmy G going in that matchup today at 3:30.
But again, talking about matchups wise, I mean, Minnesota has had a really good running game as of late too with Dalvin Cook, and then the kind of reemergence of Kyle Rudolph too in terms of a tight end option for them. So I think this is a very interesting matchup. I think the game is going to be better than I think people thought. I think just looking at this game, everyone's like, "Oh, dang, this should have been New Orleans and San Francisco. Should have been Drew Brees versus that defense." I think we're still going to get a really good game between these two teams. So I think regardless, we're in for a treat.
Yeah, and I think this is similar, kind of similar to last week. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings, Kirk Cousins isn't a big name. I think Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs are kind of becoming a bigger stars, but obviously San Francisco has the bigger names, right now. I mean, they've got Nick Bosa. Everybody knows who George Kittle is. Anybody that plays fantasy football, everybody knows George Kittle. Everybody knows Richard Sherman. Everybody knows by now Jimmy Garoppolo. If you're a football fan, if not for
if
what
you
he's
watch porn,
right.
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. And that's exactly what I was going to say. Was like if you pay attention to what he's done. Off the field, that's where he's made a lot of the headlines. This is Jimmy Garoppolo's first ever playoff start. We've talked about it now, and there is going to be that factor of him going out there and possibly having to win this football game. But I think you did bring up the running game with Matt Breida, with Raheem Mostert, and I thought I heard a stat, and I can't remember where I heard this stat, and I wish I could so I could give them credit for it, but. He had the most or the best run average yards per carry in the NFL. Raheem Mostert, better than Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
So he's an X factor. You talked about Deebo Samuel. Mm-hmm. He's a huge X factor. And I think Snoop and I's favorite player on the 49ers, Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback. The fullback.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is just one of those. He lines up in the backfield and you're just like, oh, look at that, kind of big white dude back
Who's
there.
That 44 guy?
Yeah, he's just gonna block.
Right.
Nah, he's sneaking out.
He got some hands.
He's got some hands. He can get out there and make some plays. But I mean, I think Zach, you got a great point about the Minnesota Vikings. They're primed and ready. They've already gone to the Superdome and they've taken care of business against the New Orleans Saints. Kirk Cousins isn't intimidated by the San Francisco 49ers.
No, not at all.
And Thielen is coming off that injury. Stephon Diggs has been sick this week. Apparently he's maybe come down with something similar than Zach had. But maybe he comes out with a Jordan game. Yeah, a Jordan flu game.
Yep.
He could come out and, so if you're doing a DFS slate, you might want to make Stephon Diggs your captain. You're doing a showdown or something like that, because we all know athletes, they, for some reason, when they play sick
or it's their birthday,
they come out. They come out and they ball out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because they just get drugged up with a bunch of medicine and they just aren't really thinking about anything and they're just like so totally focused on the game. But that could be a little X factor for the Minnesota Vikings. I just think personally, San Francisco 49ers just have too many weapons. I mean, I think Minnesota does have a great defense. They do have a great run game. They have a good to great quarterback, good in Kirk Cousins. He can get the job done.
True.
He's not going to win you the football games, but he's going to do what you need him to do. But I just think with San Francisco, if they get that running game going to set up the passing game, then don't let Minnesota force Jimmy to win this football game. I think San Francisco wins. Paul, final thoughts?
Like it. No, I mean, like I said, if y'all gonna do any kind of bets, I'm taking Vikings +7. I think that's a big lock this week. I'm just putting it out there, but I think Zach's right. It's going to be a really close game. It's going to be fun. It's going to be tight, but I think they're more evenly matched than a lot of people think.
All right, Tennessee at Baltimore tonight, 7:15 on CBS. Let's see, Baltimore -10 favorite, and that's 46.5 over under. Zach, we'll start off with you. Tennessee Titans and Baltimore Ravens.
And I would take the under. I would take whatever under is for duration of the game. I would take that, because I mean these are two teams that try to shorten the game. They want to run the ball. They want to take the air out. They almost use passes as like a surprise. Like they don't pass much, but when they do, they try to hit you deep, and it's because you've sold out so much in terms of stopping the run. I think Derrick Henry has been such a very fun player to watch this year. If you're not watching Lamar Jackson, you're watching Derrick Henry. And so what he's been able to do and the stats that he's been able to put up for Tennessee, I think has really helped out Ryan Tannehill in terms of kind of resurging his career as well. I think this is still Ravens all the way, but I think this game is still going to be fun to watch if you're into kind of that hard nose, like knock them down, drag them out, like shorten the game. Maybe, I mean, each team is going to have the ball like 3 times a piece, and when the clock hits zeros. Mm-hmm. So I think this game is kind of a nice change of pace in terms of what the NFL has become. So I think this is, and for that reason, it's going to be a lot of fun. But I think the defense for Baltimore is just done more this year to kind of put on display than Tennessee has. I think Tennessee has been a good story, a fun story to watch in terms of getting to where they are now, and I think they're going to be a team to kind of watch in the future, but I think they're a year early.
Well,
it's going to be run heavy tonight, and I think with Mark Ingram being a really limited right now for Baltimore, I think that Lamar Jackson is just going to pick up the pace. I'd really be curious to see if there's a prop bet out there to see if maybe there's a over-under on rushing yards, because if there is and it's like around 80, I would take the over, because I think Lamar Jackson might have 100 yards rushing tonight. The other thing to take into consideration, it's going to be like 62 degrees, but there's a front coming into Baltimore's area, and I'm not sure. They're saying, I'm looking at the weather report right now, they're saying it's going to hold off to like midnight, which the game would be over by then. But if that storm gets there early, this could be a huge, sloppy, muddy game, which is going to be really beneficial to both these teams because they're very run-centric. But I like plus 10 for the Titans tonight. I think Tannehill gets things done. I think Derrick Henry is going to be imposing as well. But this is going to be a really dandy game to watch, especially if you like defenses like I do, and I think you do too, Chris. Yeah. Low-scoring game, and I think Zach is right on with the under the whole way.
All right, so the squall line storm of 2020 that we had last night in the Central Texas area is going to be blowing into Baltimore, I guess, tonight. Probably the same little storm system.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if it gets there, it could become a factor. But I think you're right. I mean, both these teams they're so run heavy. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can just keep running the football. I don't think at this level either quarterback has any issues throwing the ball in the elements. So I mean, I think especially in the NFL level. The weather can play a factor if it's just driven snow or something like that. But if it's raining and windy, the ball can become slippery. But these guys are pros, so
for sure,
I don't think that's going to be a huge factor in it, especially if it doesn't come in till late. All right, Tennessee at Baltimore. Baltimore minus 10. You're like the Tennessee plus 10. I think I do too.
Yeah, that's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points. Snoop.
Money line, Titans.
Hey, upset city.
Zach, you got anything on this spread?
No, I mean, I think you just got to rock with the Baltimore regardless.
Okay. All right. And, of course, tomorrow, Houston Texans at Kansas City Chiefs, a 2:05 kickoff on CBS, these weird kickoff times again. Right now, Kansas City is a 10-point favorite. Paul's shaking his head no. Will Fuller's playing. Yeah, he was questionable, and then I think he's going to play.
Yeah,
my opinion that's a huge X factor for Houston.
Oh yeah.
He got behind the defense the last time these two teams played several times, and basically Deshaun Watson just didn't hit him. So if he's able to do that again, I mean, of course, if he's able to score a 70-yard touchdown and then pull his hamstring, then that'll be
that's what's going to happen. That's exactly how it's going to go down.
That's when it's going to go down. Then I think the Houston Texans, might have a chance, because it'll get some points on the board for them and get them rolling. They're a very momentum-driven team. They are very high when they're high, and they're very low when they're low. So I think if they're able to get the offense rolling with some Will Fuller, open it up for DeAndre, get Kenny Stills involved, I think all of that is going to help the Houston Texans. I don't think the Kansas City Chiefs will win by 10 points.
Really?
I don't. And the only reason why I say that is because the Houston Texans, they are, from what I've seen this year, they always come back.
Yes.
At the end.
Yep.
Even if they don't have any chance of winning the football game, they'll score like late points, like trash points.
They'll make you think about that. They'll make you think about that bet you laid down for sure.
So that's why I'm saying. I mean, I'll take Houston Texans plus 10 because of what they've done. As a team trying to come back, and they might not have won the game, but they were they definitely never quit on this team. So Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs to win, but I like the Houston Texans plus 10. Paul.
The last time these two teams matched up, it was 31-24, the final. And like you said, Chris, Houston is always scoring points late. They're going to make you think about it. They didn't start playing the game last week until after the second half or after halftime for the second half of the game. Houston is going to get things rolling, I think, early. Last game they matched up, Patrick Mahomes was injured. He wasn't 100%. This time he is. The conditions are going to be 35 degrees at kickoff. Later after or mid-afternoon game in Kansas City. My biggest thing is I think the factors of the weather conditions with Houston being an indoor team, 35 degrees is pretty cold, especially if you're in Houston. There's not going to be any humidity out there, so I think that's another thing that plays into, advantage for both teams. Patrick Mahomes lights it up, and I think that Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans keep up with him. I'm not taking the spread. I'm not taking the money line, but the over 51.5, take the over. These teams are going to put up big points, and I think it could be like 38, 31 in that kind of range.
All right, Zach.
I think in terms of narrative, I think this is fun because I think it's really showing what the NFL has come to in terms of quarterbacks. We have two guys that really kind of have changed the NFL, to kind of change the game, kind of changed the face of the NFL as well. I mean, you have Pat Mahomes, you have Deshaun Watson, and there's a big turn from the Tom Brady's, from the Phillip Rivers of the world, and I think this is a matchup that's really good in terms of optimism, in terms of future of the NFL. So I think you can't go wrong with both of these teams. I still do think that the Chiefs are kind of destined to get back where they were if it wasn't for an offsides last year. And I think the Texans are still a little bit early in terms of putting a team together to surround Deshaun Watson, in terms of making it his team and really complimenting him. So I think I still rock with the Chiefs, but I think the Texans are going to be here to stay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really do. Of course, they need to find a running back at some point.
A consistent one, yeah, for sure.
One. But I do think that the Houston Texans are obviously a good team. They're in the divisional round, so they're able to get here, unlike the Dallas Cowboys. So I think that they have a bright future. I do, like I said, Kansas City. I like them to win the game, but like I said, Houston Texans plus 10 is great for me. And I liked your comment about the change in the face of the game. You got Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, you got Russell Wilson. And it is, it's and I actually read an article, and it was talking about the year of the black quarterback, and I was like, okay,
was it
cool.
a Jet magazine?
No. It was by an African American writer, but he was talking, and I found it interesting. Okay. I really did. I was like, okay, I didn't really thought about it. But he was just saying, like, the success that the black quarterback has had this year has been tremendous. Especially led by Lamar Jackson. You talk about the MVP candidates.
It's been black-excellent.
Black-excellent, yes.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Hey, we're not afraid to talk about race around here.
No.
We're not. We're not sensitive around here. But I found it interesting. And this is a prime game to show what that article is about. You got two very good teams that are being led by African American quarterbacks. And I think it's really good. And I'm glad you brought that up, Zach, because it's a great point to make. So minus 10 Kansas City. Snoop.
Houston money line.
Upset city again.
Yep.
Dang, Snoop.
Snoop said he's like, man, I like the money
I'm about
line.
to actually put in a $20 bet on all four underdogs winning money line and see what it pays. I'll keep you posted.
You gonna parlay that?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Just real quick.
Go ahead.
Since that article you just brought up, just shout out Doug Williams and Warren Moon.
Yeah,
legends.
All right,
paved the way.
Absolutely.
Steve McNair, R.I.P.
Steve McNair,
R.I.P.
yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. All right, and real quick before we talk about Seattle and Green Bay, I want to shout out to our watch party joiners. Shout out Jessica, Jennifer, Brad. What's up, Brad? It's one of my new best friends. And
What's that wave?
Guess what? It's my Brad, dude. My Brad wave. If you met Brad, you would want to wave at him too, dude. He's like one of the coolest dudes ever. He's even cooler than you.
Hey, you waved real weird though.
Was it? Do it. How did I do? It's my parade wave.
That's your Miss America way right there.
Miss America wave.
Keep talking.
Let's move on. Seattle at Green Bay. 5:40 kickoff time on Fox. Green Bay, a 4-point favorite at home. I'm going to let the Green Bay Packer fan kick this off for us on Zach.
I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. This is a rivalry game. So I think regardless, these teams play each other very well every time they play. And I think they match up really well against each other. Out of the teams that are still in the playoffs, Green Bay has the worst deep ball defense, and that's what Russell Wilson likes to do. We were talking about how in that Tennessee Baltimore game that these teams like to kind of lull you to sleep with the run and then hit you deep. And that's kind of what Russell Wilson does. He likes to stretch the pocket, he likes to stretch the field, and kind of get you to commit to stopping him in the run game and then bomb you over top, especially with the emergence of DK Metcalf taking that pressure off of Tyler Lockett. And I think this is going to be a big game in terms of talking about if this Green Bay defense is where people thought it was at the beginning of the season. Yeah. They've really been up and down, and in terms of is the defense a good defense? Is it not a good defense? Can they stop the run? Can they not stop the run? Are there all the DBs that they've just loaded up on in the past probably like 5 years of drafts, just loading up on DBs? Is it going to pay off? And this is a game that they're going to need that. And I think the NFL has come to show you, regardless of these kind of run heavy offenses, if you're going to be successful, if you're going to win a Super Bowl, the back end of your defense has to be able to stop these high powered offenses. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be a test. If Green Bay can't do that, if they're getting bombed all over the place, if DK Metcalf's running wild, then Green Bay just wasn't there yet, and it's another year that Aaron Rodgers is kind of being wasted because they haven't been able to put a good enough team on the other side of the ball. So I think just in terms of running game, both teams have kind of had an up and down running game with Carson and Aaron Jones. If both of these teams have kind of had their success driven by the success of those two guys. If Aaron Jones can be hot, I think that takes a lot of pressure off of Aaron Rodgers, and it really opens up that passing game in these big games that he's had. But also he's come to show you this year that he's been able to kind of take the weight and put it on his shoulders and have 4 touchdown games, have 5 touchdown games, have games where he's really lighting up the stat book in terms of passing and hitting all these receivers. And I think being so late in the season, he's really built a nice rapport with the receivers that he has available, with Valdez Scantling, with Devontae Adams, with that dude that looked like me, Kumaro. Yeah. So I think that regardless, it's going to be a really fun game. I'm very weary about the Packers defense. I haven't really been on board with them since earlier in the season when they got gashed a few times in the run game. Mm-hmm. So I think you're going to have the two Smiths be able to kind of contain Russell Wilson, which is something they really haven't had to do this year. They've really just kind of been able to pin their ears back and rush the passer freely. So to have them try to contain Russell Wilson, and I think that really helps out the back end of their defense as well. So hopefully your boy Blake Martinez and the rest of this Packer defense can stop Seattle, because Seattle and on the other hand hasn't been very successful until last week with pressuring the quarterback. And I think that's really been the kryptonite for Aaron Rodgers this year is when they've gone up against defensive lines that have kept him on his back and kept him kind of from getting comfortable in the pocket. Those have been the games that the Packers have lost, and those have been the games that the Packers have lost bad. And when you look at the San Francisco game, when you look at San Diego with Bosa and those guys over there rushing the passer. So I think, both Bosa in both of those games actually. Mm-hmm. If the Packers defense can kind of hold up their end of the bargain and we don't get a game from Jadeveon Clowney like we did last week, I think the Packers can win this game. But if not, I think this game is going to be extremely close and it's going to be really back and forth.
Paul?
Zach, you did a lot of homework, my friend, and I want to say thank you. You did a good job on that one because you stole all of my thunder. But anyways, getting back to Clowney and Bobby Wagner, those are the guys you got to shut down for the offensive line for the Green Bay Packers. I think they get it done. All the receivers that you just mentioned, I think Aaron Rodgers has a day. I think he throws 4 touchdowns. I think this game gets blown out quick, and I think Seattle scores less than 10 points in this game. Just like, they really haven't been doing all year, but I think they get held down.
But they've had similar games when in terms of like if the offense is off, they're off.
They're all off, and it kind of trickles over to the defensive side where they just kind of shut down. And I think that's what happens. I think Aaron comes out gunslinging really fast. I think Matt LaFleur has everybody primed to go at kickoff. I just think this is going to be a big blowout. That's where I'm looking at things from my point of view. I'm taking -4 all day long.
Wow, really?
And as a coordinator, head coach, this is Matt LaFleur's first playoff experience too. So I think, I mean that's kind of scary if you think about it, but also in terms of the preparation, the amount of time he's had to prepare, especially getting that first round bye, I think was huge in terms of a new head coach. So being able to have him able to kind of game plan an offense and game plan around, especially, I mean, being an offensive minded head coach sitting at home watching what Seattle did right defensively last week. It only gave Matt LaFleur time to kind of scheme around that. So I think in terms of that, I think that's more beneficial to the Packers side than it is for Seattle. So I'll take the Packer money line just because I'm a Packer fan. But in terms of betting, I think this game could go either way.
Yeah. So Green Bay is -4. Like we said, over under is 47. Russell Wilson has never won at Lambeau Field in 3 tries. He's got, 10 interceptions there. He doesn't perform well.
It's going to be 24 degrees at kickoff.
Yeah.
Very difficult conditions.
Yeah. So Russell Wilson just hasn't performed well at Lambeau Field. And I think, just listening to you guys, I haven't really delved into this game a whole lot because it's kind of the last game on the slate. But I think, listen to both of you. I think I'm swayed Green Bay. I think Aaron Rodgers, this is his home field. I mean, this is the playoffs. It's going to be 24 degrees, frozen tundra. I mean, this is all the X factors, as far as the venue and the weather and, what's happening in the crowd, all that stuff. That's all definitely an advantage for the Green Bay Packers. And I like Green Bay as well, -4. Snoop?
If he parlayed all 4 dogs, money line, $20, how much do you think he win? Just random guess.
500.
$3,219. I'm putting $20 on 4 upsets, and I'm just going to hope that I wind up with $3,000. Seattle money line.
So Seattle money line, Houston Texans money line. Who else? Tennessee money line, and the first game Vikings.
$20 to win $3,200.
All right, so if Minnesota wins this first game, we'll start.
DNC.
Yeah,
they would need to make a company. I mean, because the NFL has been so unpredictable this year.
Yeah. Hey, it's a great point. Yeah, so
completely unpredictable.
Yeah, so if you're a betting person out there,
small wager.
Hey, yeah, $20.
I mean, $20. I mean, I'll spend $20 at McDonald's.
Yeah. And your rent is $3,000. Jeez Louise, Chris.
No. This is Austin, Texas. In some places it is.
Yeah, right.
Man. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can definitely do that easily. All right, ReconAthlete.com podcast, episode 42. Let's wrap this thing up. Don't forget, January 19th, Kreitz Market live Recon broadcast starts at noon. We're going to go to about 2:30, I think.
Something that's been weighing on me since the beginning of the episode.
Sure.
The defensive lineman across from DeMarcus Lawrence is Robert Quinn. Brady Quinn is the former quarterback of the Cleveland Browns.
You're right. Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Wanted to let you know.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, I wanted to say something, but Paul was on a roll.
Yeah, he does that sometimes. Robert Quinn. Shout out Brady Quinn.
Shout out Brady Quinn. That's the goal.
All right. So once again, January 19th, Kreitz Market live broadcast. Zach's going to be there. Paul's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Snoop's going to be hanging out as well. We're going to have some live music, great barbecue, some trivia for some gift certificates. Come on out. Say what's up to us. Say what's up to King Kalunga is going to be there.
Yep.
Keith Schmidt's going to be there. Shout out Keith. And we're going to have a great time. So y'all make sure y'all come out January 19th at 12 o'clock. All right, fellas. Happy Saturday. Zach, I'm glad you were able to come back and join us. It's always a great, much better show when you're here. Snoop, shout out to you.
Can we agree to put $5 each in on this all dogs bet thing? I mean, $5
for sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see what happens, dude.
All right.
Anyway,
Let's do it. All right, man. Let's get out of here. Our next Next podcast, Bright Facebook was going to be. We're doing Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday, 8 p.m.
Wednesday. All right, we'll do Wednesday. Make sure you join us here on Facebook Live. And if you miss one, you can always go onto YouTube. Paul, go ahead, do your thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all enjoying the podcast, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Thank y'all very much for everybody who's been watching and clicking on our videos. Click the bell on YouTube for the notifications. We gone.